Please welcome Women's Persecution Specialist for Open Doors, Elizabeth Lane Miller.
Good morning. Our theme for this segment has some positive, though challenging aspects: overcoming religious persecution. But how do we do that when what we're up against is an attempt to destroy an entire marginalized religious community? In many ways, genocide is persecution taken to its logical extreme. Religiously motivated genocide is an intentional series of strategic acts, only one of which is causing direct physical death. That's not my definition, but it is a paraphrase of the UN Convention. This definition is important because it invites us to uncover and name the more hidden and long-term actions which seek to destroy communities. And many of these subtle, yet equally destructive actions focus on the women and girls of religious minorities. Within marginalized belief groups, vulnerability does not just come from being part of a minority religion. Other aspects of an individual's identity may compound their vulnerability. In addition to gender, these factors could include age or ethnicity. And each of these additional vulnerabilities can be exploited by actors hostile to the individual's faith. In many contexts, being a woman carries a whole host of gender-based inequalities that are not experienced by men in the same environment. These might be legal or economic inequalities, or based on cultural norms. Every one of these vulnerabilities creates the opportunity for religious persecution. When it comes to women and girls, religious persecution blends into and amplifies existing injustices and inequalities. The result is that women and girls more commonly experience invisible forms of persecution. Open Doors World Watch research has been tracking religious persecution dynamics according to gender since 2018. As I note some of the findings from studying the Christian community, think of this work as a case study that might correspond to what other faith or belief groups experience. The distinguishing differences that we see are that men commonly experience visible strategies of religious persecution, often enacted more publicly, whereas women more commonly experience invisible strategies, which often involve shame and sexuality. For women, violence often happens behind closed doors. Forced marriage or house arrest are effective tools to control women and girls, as well as any children they may have. Consider the experience of Lucina, a young woman from South Asia who experienced these violations firsthand. At 19 years old, she was kidnapped and trafficked into a forced marriage. She was kept a prisoner during COVID lockdown. She was trapped with her persecutors, forced to work like a slave, systematically abused, and severely malnourished. Too often, women and girls face a combination of sexual violence, house arrest, and forced marriage, like Lucina. This leaves women and girls alive to suffer lifelong isolation and abuse, a kind of living death. Now, after lockdown, Lucina was rescued. The question was, would her family accept her back? Could her son, from this forced marriage, have a future in her father's church? Often, we see in cases such as Lucina's, this is when shame and stigma could have continued her suffering and acted as an ongoing sentence of living death even after rescue. These are the invisible means that are used to destroy marginalized religious communities. Destruction is sometimes in the form of immediate death, but some means of destroying a community are not immediate. They are more devious or involve drawn-out suffering. So how to overcome? Lucina's father did so by choosing not to participate in the shame dynamics which shatter families and speed the destruction of whole communities. He said, "This is my daughter, and her son is my son." Communities can even choose to resist gender inequalities, which increased their community's vulnerability to religious persecution in the first place. I'll be focusing further on this topic tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. in River Birch B in the session on women and girls persecuted for their religious beliefs, along with some others, Judy Golub, Kyle Bernard-Geni, Dr. Samina Salim, and Sharifa Shakira. I'm so delighted that this summit is shining a light on the violations women and girls face because of their faith. There is so much to learn and so much we need to do. Thank you.